Hey, today's episode is really for parents or for any of you that is looking to be a parent of sometime in the future, because the information you're going to learn in today's episode is something that I wish I would have known before becoming a parent. And it's also, which leads me into mom guilt, because I didn't know what I didn't know. And it really sucks that I didn't know what I didn't know. And I feel like this week has been an unprecedented amount of mom guilt across socials. As as a nutritional therapy practitioner, when Bobby Kennedy announced, some findings of some potential causes of autism and listing Tylenol and, vaccines, then we all celebrated. Yes, this information is finally coming to the front line. This information is finally making mainstream news. It's information that practitioners have known, holistic functional practitioners have known for years. It's things that I've known for years. But you know what? I didn't learn about them until after my kids were beyond puberty. Yes, I took Tylenol while I was pregnant. Yes, both pregnancies. Actually, it was paracetamol because I had my daughter in England, and then I did the acetaminophen here, and I had chronic migraines. And then also with my horse accident that I had before I went to Honduras, and broke some ribs when I got pregnant, it strained some scar tissue or something there in my side, which debilitated me my third trimesters, and I was dependent on Tylenol with codeine, or paracetamol with codeine in both pregnancies as I was bedridden. And then I didn't know any better and I vaccinated my kids. Talk about mom guilt, so much of it. And which brings me kind of to today's episode, in that you don't know what you don't know. And you have to forgive yourself. Sometimes you have to ask your kids for forgiveness. And today we're talking with Jamie Belz. She's the one who runs the NTA's podcast, Nutritional Therapy Association podcast. If you haven't listened to it yet, I'm going to put some links in the notes of some of my favorite episodes about circumcision and hormones and some other things. But she went on a teaching spree about obesity in children and how the choices that we make as parents affect our children for the rest of their lives. And her podcast about childhood obesity, and then her teaching, an additional teaching that she did with us practitioners on the side, stirred up so much mom guilt in me that I had to have her on this podcast to kind of process it with her, and then also kind of renew some hope. I mean, I just needed some hope and inspiration that things can change, things can heal, and there's always hope, right? Hope there's always hope. Anyway, so please welcome today Jamie Belz. She is a functional nutritional therapy practitioner. Her husband is the CEO of the NTA. She runs the NTA podcast. She's also a master health coach. She's brilliant, amazing, so much fun, full of life. Guys, please welcome my friend Jamie Belz.
Oh. This fly is still buzzing around my head. It's like big enough to skewer it.
Oh, don't love this time of year when all the bugs come alive. It's just like, oh Lord.
It's a lot. This one's, we'll just try to, if it lands on my face though, that's where I can't pretend it's non-existent.
That's okay.
Go with it.
It's real life.
Go with it.
Just go with it.
All right.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me and for your, trusting me with doing this. And I'm just so excited and grateful. And I'm hoping that this topic today will bring me a little bit of hope, because when I heard you teach it and share it in a podcast, and then I jumped in on another webinar training that you did, there are very few times when I've cried from a place of pain and guilt and despair. Like that mom guilt thing. When listening to teaching or podcasts, and that was one of them. And so I'm really excited to get to the hope part of the of this topic. And but I mean, it's a serious one. But first, before we jump into the child obesity epidemic, could you tell me like a little bit more about yourself? Like, what's your story? How'd you get into this? Like, what's I know that's like probably a whole nother podcast, but like just kind
I'm
of
like, how
general,
much time do we have?
a little bit more about you and just
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to do this. And I do know that this is a tough topic because the reality is the decisions that we make, I often say nothing does nothing.
yeah.
And so we have to know that everything that we are doing should be with intentionality. It's even on the side of like, this is part of that 20 in the 80-20 rule. If you're an 80-20 person, I try not to be because I just try to go for 100% and know that I'm probably going to land at about 80
Yeah.
when I'm just trying hard,
Yeah.
but if I give myself 20% give,
Oh, I'm
I'm
with you.
probably going to land somewhere around like 50, 60. And so I try to strive for 100% and know that nobody's perfect, and I also wanna be a functional member in society. So I want to be able to eat out with friends and enjoy experiences and eat the food that was made a little bit more with love than nutrition in mind. And um, so all those things being said, this is a space that I've been in since 2016, meaning I grew up on a farm in northern Minnesota. We raised, hunted, grew almost all of our own food. And it wasn't because my mom and dad were like staunch health advocates. It was like, we have 4 kids and a farm, and this is and we're just going to work hard and feed our starving children this way. And then, I ended up getting into radio broadcasting, and I did that for a few years. And that's when I first and foremost experienced my sedentary lifestyle and started kind of getting a little fluffy, and great timing. We ended up with a sponsor for my show that was like, come work out in our gym, we'll give you a personal trainer, and you just talk about it on the radio. And so I ended up falling in love with the gym. And so I loved weight training, loved working out, loathed running, but I loved the rest of it. And so fast forward, my radio broadcasting career got me into the marketing side of things. And I was actually the director of marketing for a hospital for a few years. And that really taught me a lot. I opened up my eyes to really wanting to be more on the side of root cause and not so much, you know, playing whack a mole with symptoms, which is largely what I saw kind of the hospital system as, and a big just the money that they need to keep making to keep that operation going. It just wasn't the right spot for me. I was all about promoting wellness and the preventative measures and working with kids to be healthy and vibrant. And so I ended up quitting that job, and I became the director of marketing and PR for a hydrogen energy company based out of Alaska. We were pairing hydrogen fuel cells with renewable energy sources to get people off grid. The technology was based out of Europe, and so I could no longer go to my gym anymore, and so I started running. So
Oh, you loathe running, but you
I loathe
decided
running, but I knew I
not.
needed to do something. And it's also easier to run in like the Alaskan mountains and the Italian countrysides. And it was a good thing that I picked that up because I ended up in a really bad car accident on a due diligence tour in Italy. And we rolled end over end in a Fiat, landed upside down in a drainage ditch. My lungs completely collapsed. I had lots of injuries, but survived. My doctors told me that had I not been in such good health going into it, I likely would not have survived. And so I grabbed that and ran with it. I'm like, I need to tell the world that being healthy literally saves your life in times such as this, which we all just witnessed through COVID, right? All the comorbidities and how much that exponentially increased the threat of COVID for certain people. But also, what I've noticed in my life is the better I do, the better I do. The worse I do, the worse I do. It's like if I'm getting up and going to the gym in the morning, that means I'm not staying up late watching Netflix. I'm not drinking. I'm not, like eating crappy foods. It's like if I get up and go to the gym, I'm going to need some healthy nutrition to refuel my body and repair my body. Furthermore, I'm not just brain tired at night where, I'm like looking for sugar to keep me going, and there's an imbalance in energy expenditure. It's like if I'm working out and burning some physical energy as well as my daytime mental burn, it's like that kind of meets up at night and I'm tired and I can sleep really well. But if there's an imbalance there, I find that I don't sleep as well. So when I am doing good things for me, I am really not self-sabotaging. But if I decide to like, and this is younger me, I learned these things years ago, but it's like you stay up a little too late, have some drinks, definitely not going to the gym in the morning. You're craving salt all day, probably want a burger and some fries and a beer at some point to deal with, like it's just
Yeah,
really easy to fall into that vicious downward spiral.
so
At the
easy.
same time, the upward spiral is self-perpetuating as well. It's a little bit harder, but
You talk more about like upward spirals. Like whenever I think spiral, I always think it's down, but sometimes it's like, man, that upward spiral, it's hard, but it's so good.
yeah. Yeah. And
Sorry.
so that's what I decided I needed to tell the world. So for me, it was all about being like physically active because I just kind of always had the food sidecar, thankfully. That doesn't mean we didn't grow up on like hamburger helper and stuff. I grew up on a beef farm. Hamburger helper was one of the first meals that we learned to cook. But now I'm, as an adult and I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, being in the gym is what saved me from my accident and is what is really doing good things for me. But I ended up quickly realizing that that's not the case. It's definitely more about food. And I arrived at that conclusion because I'm like, I'm working with these people. They're killing themselves in the gym, 5, 6 days a week sometimes, and not seeing any progress. And so finally, I'm like, what are you eating? And I find out, I'm like, all right, I need to go learn more about nutrition. And so I'm very thankful I found the NTA, went through their education, their training in 2016, graduated as an FNTP, and I've been on this fun roller coaster ride of every combination of like finding new things. I'm like, oh, yay. And being, my own guinea pig, experimenting on my family, trying to help my family to like, come on, guys, I promise it's good. While also really trying to forgive myself for, that mother's guilt that we feel when we don't know what we don't know. So we made decisions that we wouldn't have made if we had known. And so we have 5 kids, my husband and I. We live in Minnesota. And I work for the NTA full time now with our podcast, the Nutritional Therapy and Wellness Podcast.
Wow.
That's me in a nutshell.
Amazing. I love that you did that so well, so quick. I know somebody asked me the question, tell them more about my life. I'm like, how long? I mean, this is volumes of this, but thank you for that.
It is always one of the toughest questions. Like, tell me who you are.
I mean,
Oh, I have no idea. That's such a complicated question.
having an identity crisis right now.
Exactly. You start crying. We're women, like, you never know what you're going to get.
Never know.
Some days not prepared to answer that question as well as others.
Oh, so yeah, maybe you can share a little bit more about how you got into this topic of childhood obesity and tell us a little bit more about that and
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
how you got passionate about that.
The reason I got passionate about this is because it's a stat that is like I didn't know the fact that when we're growing up, our bodies are developing in pre-puberty as we eat more than what we're burning, our bodies are not just storing. Okay, so let's talk really quick about how it happens for adults, right? So it's not as simple as calories in, calories out when it comes to nutrition. And that's one of the biggest lies that we've been sold. It's not. I always talk about a calorie is just a measurement in the same way that a pound is a measurement. And so when we're talking about the foods, the nutrients that we need to come in order to make our blood and make our eyes and make our entire body systems. We literally are what we eat. That's people hear that so much. I think that they kind of like it means nothing because it's been said so much, but that's so real. Everything you see here is uh, assembled from the foods that I've eaten. And furthermore, the outputs, the energy outputs, and how I think and how all of that is from the stuff going in, right? And so and it's a very complex thing, but when we're talking about calories in and calories out, again, a calorie is just a measurement. So think of it as one of the analogies I give all the time is if you're building a house, you don't just call the lumber yard and say, I need 10,000 pounds. because a pound is a measurement. I need 10,000 pounds of materials. They're going to say, okay, well, what do you need? Because you need some sheetrock and you're going to need some nails and you're going to need some 2x4s and some shingles or whatever, right? We need a variety of different things. And that's the same way that it is with our bodies. That being said, when it comes to our bodies and utilizing that food for fuel, if we are consuming more than we need, we're going to store that excess fuel as adipose tissue, as fat. And our fat cells either get bigger or smaller as we gain or lose weight. But when we're kids, our bodies are just growing so quickly and they're adapting to who we are going to be for the rest of our lives. Our bodies are slowly changing and growing. And so what happens is if our kids are eating in excess, those fat cells aren't just getting bigger and smaller. Pre-puberty, we're establishing this set point with these fat cells. Our bodies are actually going to be growing the number of fat cells as well. And so this is why, as kids are struggling with weight pre-puberty, then they hit puberty and they have more fat cells than their peers who are, you know, of a more optimal weight. And I say that because it's not even normal. Like normal is now overweight. It's what's most common. And that's something that we need to change. And that's where my heart was just broken because I've worked with so many people and we never want to focus as nutritional therapy practitioners on weight, but
Mm.
how many people do we know that we love so much that struggle with weight? So many of us, statistically speaking, in the US in particular, we are very, very much overweight and obese. And so it breaks my heart because that is a quality of life killer. And when you spend your life focused on losing weight and not feeling attractive and not wanting to be in the bikini, not wanting to be in the dress, not wanting to go to this event because you don't feel presentable as a physical being, that breaks my heart to no end. And so when we have these poor kids who their parents don't know that this is a big deal, we can't let our kids be overweight because they're growing fat cells and adding more and more fat cells. And then that's their set point. And now their body is going to be accustomed to that. Now they've got this metabolic set point that is at a higher rate. This is their normal for their body, and their body will maintain that and defend that. And so it doesn't mean that it's hopeless. It just means early intervention is best. And as soon as we hear these words, we now need to start taking action. And the longer that it's been at that, the harder it is to change. Just as a general rule of thumb, bioindividuality says that's not true. But I think for the most part, that is the case. But that's where we can utilize things like for some people, I've seen like a keto diet, ketogenic diet can be really good for short period of time to shock the system into becoming a fat burner versus a sugar burner.
Mhm.
And so long way of saying the reason I started caring about this and lecturing about this is because it broke my heart and I want to help as many people as possible to not predispose themselves to not just the challenge of excess weight and what that does to us mentally and emotionally. But furthermore, that also then predisposes us to the onslaught of chronic diseases that are ailing our country as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm a very visual person, so I kind of was picturing it and trying to understand. So basically, from like birth until puberty, you're growing. As you grow and develop, your body is making fat cells to accommodate the life that you're living.
Hmm.
And then, correct me if I'm wrong, and then at puberty, like that's the amount of fat cells that you basically have for the rest of life. And then as, and then from puberty onwards, it's like that particular cell just either expands and grows or gets smaller. The how I kind of is that right?
Hmm.
How I
Yeah.
explain. So basically, like the intent being very intentional with our kids when they're young and developing, it's really important because you basically are setting them up for life as far as the amount of fat that they carry.
Their fat, their potential,
Potential.
right? That's what it's setting is, you know, the potential for carrying
Mhm.
that adipose tissue is just our fat. It's
Sure.
right. That's our collection of fat cells simplified here. But so it's just now you have more potential
Okay.
for being able to store excess energy as fat.
So you mentioned a couple statistics that just really whew, hit home. One of them was that like the but the potential of or the chances of becoming an obese child dependent upon the parent, and it's not necessarily genetics. I mean, I'm sure that probably plays a role, but just that I think you said something, or I heard you say something along the lines of that, like, um, if one parent is obese, then a child has a 50% chance of becoming obese. Is that right?
I think it's 80%, an 80% greater chance if and actually it's
Both.
so so what we're looking at is the and you're pulling stats on me from my last podcast episode. So no, it's all good because it's what I believe it is if one or more parents are overweight or obese, that's an 80% greater chance of that child being overweight or obese. And that's lifestyle. That's the foods that we have in our house and the activity that we do or don't do, right? And so, what are we eating and what are we doing? Essentially, that's as simple and as insanely complex as it gets. What are we eating and what are we doing? And so, generally speaking, if a parent is overweight or obese, you're exactly right that it's not necessarily the genetic composition. Not saying that that doesn't play into that, but let's be real. Our kids are just little us, just little beings that are our little mirrors in a lot of ways. And they're doing what we do and they're saying the things we say and they're eating the things that we eat and they're feeling the same things we feel in a lot of cases. And so we really need to model healthy behaviors and make sure that if your pantry looks like a concession stand, that's a problem. We've got to fix that because these kids are like getting quick access to those foods that they're not real food. It's a food facade. It's a shiny package that has Disney princesses or Paw Patrol characters or superheroes on it, and it's just one of the quotes that I was said, and I don't remember the doctor who originally said it, but it's just a brightly packaged dopamine hit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's what we have to change. We need to get our kids eating real foods and moving their bodies.
And doing it ourselves as well. Like, wow, it's just effect. The reason why this talk like kind of hit me really hard was, I mean, my family, and my husband comes from, an obese family. And so he's heavier, and it's been a struggle his whole life. God bless him. And we're working through a lot of stuff and trying to figure it out. And it's been just a constant battle. And it's funny, he's an Englishman. And so when my kids were when I got pregnant, I was like, Lord, give them my Indian skin so they don't burn in the sun. And just a couple things, but like, you certain things you ask for you hope for your children
Yes, yes.
from each other. Like, give them my husband's incredible intelligence, but give them my skin.
Yes, yes.
Um, but I just never even thought about that like overweight factor. Because our generation, it was we just don't know much about it. We're really still even just learning how much insulin plays a role and how much our hormones play a role in stress and cortisol and sleep, and they're all so involved. And then the toxin element of it all.
Yeah.
But for me, like, so my daughter, she was 12, and she was starting to hit that puberty age, and she was a swimmer. She was on the swim team. She was working out like 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, weights long, like, I mean, her events were the 500 and the mile. Like, those were her events. Like, she loved swimming, and she was my salad eater. Like, we weren't the most wealthy. So like, I mean, or I was at that time, I wasn't very food knowledgeable. I tried my best, but she, of all people, has always gravitated towards the fruits and the vegetables. And she's a little rabbit. She loves her veggies. But in this season of puberty, like, she was gaining weight at a very fast pace. I was like, something is wrong because she because she's putting on weight, but like she's not eating very much. And what she is eating is just basically fruits and vegetables. She wanted to be a vegetarian. She had some meats here and there, but not much. And then she's working out like crazy. So we take her to the doctor, and the pediatrician's like, well, let me send you to an endocrinologist. And they run some labs, and we're like, well, her cholesterol's a little high. And they set us down with a registered dietitian, and we give her a food journal, and she's like, well, she eats about 1,000 calories a day, so we're going to cut that in half to about 500. That was my face too. I'm like, she's 12 years old, she's going into puberty, and you want her to be on 500 calories a day? And she didn't even say what kind of food. And she said, and she should probably work out twice a day. So instead of doing just one workout a day, do two workouts.
Mm.
That was the registered dietitian and the endocrinologist and the pediatrician's written advice. And that was my moment where I'm like, I know something's wrong with my daughter, but I know that is not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I heard 1,000. I was like, oh, that's way not enough.
Right.
She's a
So I'm
little
like,
fish swimming all the time. And
probably
especially if they're, largely coming from carbohydrates. And so,
the
yeah,
veggies,
no, and I
but
will
so
give the
like,
caveat that like our kids kind of grow like accordions, right? Like they kind of like, it's kind of they get,
that's you.
they kind of they chub up a little bit, and then they sprout up, and then they get a little, wider and then taller and wider and taller. And that's all part of the normal process. And we're in this space, we're talking about legitimately like obese children carrying enough, or intaking enough foods, and the types of foods play into that as well, because it does make a difference what they're eating, and toxins are stored in our fat too. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a self-preservation mechanism of our bodies. And so so there's so many, Rebecca, that's the thing. There's so many compounding factors in this. And that's what I talked about in that podcast episode is, you know, the screen time makes a difference. The getting outside and getting sunshine, that makes a difference. We talk about the emotional aspect of it when kids are feeling insecure, and it's really easy to feel insecure as an adult. When you're a kid, it's just like constantly feeling insecure. At least that's how I remember my childhood. It's like once they get to a certain point, it's like you have this beautiful vibrance until you're about like 7 years old, and then somebody makes fun of you for the first time, and all of a sudden you're suddenly aware of the fact that other people care, and then you like really care what other people think, and it's just so heavy. And
Yeah.
kids deal with a lot. It's the constant pressure of trying to not disappoint mom and dad, and not disappoint my teachers, and try to fit in with all my friends, and
The level of
you know
stress is
who am I
incredible.
trying to be overall. And and there's just, and then a lot of kids are carrying their parents divorces or financial stressors, or and so our kids are under a lot of pressure, and a lot of times food becomes a coping mechanism, because when we eat, they're getting those little dopamine hits. It's the way that we're designed, and a lot of times sugar is in the forefront. If sugar is in the one of the top ingredients on whatever it is that you're eating, I'd prefer that everybody, and this is where I'd be an absolute hypocrite if I tried to push this, but ideally we would all just be eating food where it's like the ingredients are what you're looking at. Like it's an apple or it's a turkey. That's what I'm eating, and I know what it is and I can see it. But when we're reading ingredients lists, if it's a paragraph, even if it has like all of the vitamins listed and stuff, a lot of times those are just synthetic vitamins that your body doesn't even recognize as anything of nutritional value anyway.
Right.
Don't get duped into thinking that the paragraph long vitamin list is
It's going
is
to
where you're
benefit you
supposed
in
to
any
be.
way.
And with that, we cannot supplement our way out of a bad diet. We should really be trying to get our nutrition from whole food sources, properly prepared, nutrient dense whole foods. Sally Fallon's book, Nourishing Traditions, is a great, great starting point for people. But recognizing that there's a lot there's so much that goes into this, and to go circle back again, lead by example with your kids. And summertime is a great time to get in the right space with being outside, and you know just moving our bodies, get rid of those screens. That's another dopamine hit My goodness.
You're talking about dopamine hits. Like, what is the negative impact of a dopamine hit then? Like, how does that impact your weight and obesity? I just started reading the book Dopamine Nation. I just got into it, so I
Yes.
don't know
So
what.
so like anything, too much of a good thing is not necessarily a good thing, right? Dopamine is we're getting that exciting feeling when we have like when we exercise, when we have a little bit of sugar, when we see something that excites us, like that somebody liked your post on social media, like all of these things, and our body's kicking out dopamine. Well, we feel good. And so then we chase that feel good. And so whether we're getting it from screens, now we want more screens, or we're getting it from sugar or foods, now we want more of that, right? We want more and more of it because that's just how we're wired. And so what ends up happening is you have a little bit of it and it makes you feel good. And so you want more. Well, now you have over time, you kind of become desensitized to its effect, similarly to how it happens with insulin resistance. And that's a different topic. I'll cover that in just a moment because I think it's really important to talk about the sugar and insulin resistance factor in all of this and contributing to overall fat storage. That's another one of my missions is to teach people that fat isn't what's making you fat. The sugar is really what's driving that fat production and storage.
Butter good, candy bad.
Yes, exactly. But so what happens is we become desensitized, and you see this with all kinds of addictions. Substance addiction, substance abuse, it's we become desensitized. And so it takes more of whatever is driving that dopamine hit. It takes more of that to get the same level of satisfaction and more. And eventually, you're just kind of stealing from your joy bucket for tomorrow. And you end up just kind of depleted and depressed and constantly chasing those dopamine hits to feel good when really if you get to the root of it, we're looking for joy, that feel good. We're looking to the wrong sources of that.
Okay. And then, so of course, with those dopamine hits and the chasing, you're chasing the sugar that's going to be packing on pounds. And then you
And
screen
here's and yeah,
is
and let's touch
insulin.
on that quick because here's why. So
Yeah.
so people think that fat makes you fat because it's like, they're
Right.
the same word.
That's what we've been told for 50 years, right?
Right. But here's what happens. So glucose, right? We all know
Oh,
glucose is
sugar.
our quick energy in our body. That's what we're quickly turning into energy. And so what happens is you're eating sugar. We now have quick access to that sugar. So our brain lights up. We love that. Bodies love to be lazy and call on the sugar because it's the quickest form of energy. And so you'll see this. It's like you wake up in the morning and what do? Nobody takes the time to just like let our body come out of a comatose state. Instead, we're like full throttle forward. So we're shoving carbs in our mouth. So now we've got and of course, caffeine. And so we have the sugar and the caffeine going in, and now we're flying high. And we get through our morning until about 10:30, and all of a sudden, and we have this energy plummet. So what do? We run for a caffeinated beverage or some kind of quick sugar access. And now we're we take that, we go back up again. And then what happens? So about lunchtime, now we get to do it again. So we get that blood sugar up, we're feeling great, and then 2:30 in the afternoon, we're like digging for something again. Back up again.
That's like the expected normal. Like
It is.
waking up, it was expected that you wake up groggy, you feed yourself to get energy. Food is only supposed to last like 2 hours and then you crash and then it's time for a mid-morning snack. And like that's actually not normal. That's not healthy. But like growing up, I don't know about you, but I was taught that's normal. Like that's the way our bodies work and function.
Yes, and like go to a kid's sporting event and or just hang around a group of children and you hear kids say things like, "Oh, I'm shaky, I need some sugar." It's like, "Oh, sweet baby," because it's and I don't think it's because the parents are bad. And that's
No,
another thing. There's no shame in this game.
no.
This is all about education so that we can stop needing to in the future feel guilty about the decisions we're making today.
Right.
And so what's happening with all of this blood sugar roller coaster is that, our bodies every time that we have that sugar in excess, our body is responding. We're able to burn some of it, but our bodies are going to pump out insulin to say, store this fuel for later. And so, how is it storing all of that excess sugar? It's storing it as fat. And so this is where we end up in this massive conundrum of being sugar burners. So we can train our bodies to be sugar burners or we can train them to be fat burners. The path of least resistance, the easiest one, is to eat that yummy sugar, all the good sweet
Absolutely.
stuff, and you're flying high for a minute, but then again, you crash. And so trying to shift, and that's where I said, like, the ketogenic diet has been very effective for some people. But, there are some major caveats, especially when we're talking about kids, we're talking about hormones, we're talking about women and cycles and all kinds of stuff. There's bio-individuality
Through and through.
disclaimers all over this. But that's where some people have great success because it kind of shocks the system into burning all of this stored energy that we have, right?
That's a good point. I was just sorry, you said the sugar thing. I was having a flashback when I was a school bus driver. I drove a marching band, the color guard, and right before they all got on, the coaches handed them pixie sticks for quick energy. And that was tradition. Right before they go on the field to compete, they all just down a couple of pixie sticks. And so my bus was littered with pixie stick wrappers. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, I mean, for my kids, like, I had no idea. I was like, "Oh, that's great. Quick energy." I had no idea, but I just thought they know better. They know what they're doing. They've been doing this for years. But
Rebecca, my goal in this life is to make it so that I'm not the weirdo because I'm not feeding my kids poison. Like, I'm always the weirdo. I'm the fun hater. I'm the one that, like, other parents kinda hide things from because 'cause I'm that person. I know that there's so much education that needs to be done because when I go to the grocery store, 98% of the things that are in the grocery store, I won't feed to my family because I know from what I do and the training that I've done, I know that it's toxic.
right,
And so the fact is, like, somebody's buying all of that and they're feeding it to their kids because they don't know, because if they did, they wouldn't do it. And so I want it to be a major shift where parents, it's now normal to be the one that's like, no, that freeze pop is literally just high fructose corn syrup and dye and water.
it's
And I don't want to be the mean mom saying, no, you can't have that. And my kids are like always feeling left out about this stuff. But if we all knew,
we all knew
they're healthier versions of freeze pops.
there absolutely are. Yeah,
You can make your own at home
yeah,
too.
make your own good old
But there are healthier versions, and I think that's a great place to start as a parent listening to this going, "Oh, no." You know, if that's where you're at, it's okay. I was there too, and I've been doing this for 10 years, and so just remember that it's slow progression every single day. You have to be just making some better decisions. You'll have better progress with your kids if you actually just slowly transition instead of doing an absolute rug pull on them. And understand that in the same way that we have to be functional in society, they also have to be functional in society. So have your no never category, but have your like, sometimes, but keep it on a minimal. And just keep learning and learning and learning, but make just small shifts for better than options. So if historically it's been like the fluorescent blue freeze pop that's made of dye and high fructose corn syrup, then shift to like I think Welch's has that's a big
a
food
big one.
name that generally I would not just let by with a sniff test, but I think they have like an organic one even. I know there are brands. I'm just trying to think of more like what's more readily available because I know you can the hunter gatherer of today is trying to find foods that are okay to feed my family. It's
We really
crazy.
have circled back around to hunting, gathering as far as our food goes for those who, you know, want to eat clean and healthy and decrease our toxin load. Wow. Okay. So if you were to sit down with a teenager today whom has gone through puberty and is struggling with weight, how would you encourage them other than first saying you need to forgive yourself and forgive your parents for what they don't know? Just release that, forgive that. Like you can't go back and change, so we can only move forward. How would you encourage them? What would be your advice for them?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And first and foremost, they're not going to get very far unless the parent is there in the room too, because the person who's driving the shopping cart is truly the one who is holding all of the power. And, I've had conversations with kids. It breaks my heart. Like my son's wrestling team, there'll be kids that are so excited about learning this information.
Mhm.
And, but yet, if mom and dad aren't on board or they don't know or they're too busy, it's certainly not because they don't love their kids. They most definitely love their children. They just
Don't know.
aren't in this space yet, and that's okay, but it's hard for those kids, and they really do need the parent involved, and so I would always encourage a full family, I would go to their house and help them to do a pantry clean out and say, "We're burning the ship," right? There was some old explorer that landed ashore. I don't remember who it was, but doesn't matter. But nonetheless, landed ashore and said, "We're not going back. Burn the ships. Whatever is here, this is where we will
That
be. We are setting up camp and we're not going back." And that's really what you have to do if you have a teenager who's actually engaged and ready to go. Run with that. Burn the ship, clean out the pantry, clean out the freezer, be done with the foods of commerce and bring in, honestly, ChatGPT is an amazing way of finding
I love it.
recipes.
Recipes? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not on the
Plan.
ChatGPT train yet, get on
Oh,
board because it is and all you have to do is say just type in, say, you can even say, like, your ingredients if you would like, but you can say, "Give me a Nutritional Therapy Association approved
I love that.
meal." Yeah.
Nutritional Therapy Association approved
Yep.
meal.
Meal for that contains, these ingredients or omits this, because then you can say, and whatever it pulls up, make sure that you're looking at like, are these ingredients real food? And it should be. Um, and but then you can say, like omit dairy if you are, if you guys are feeling like you're dairy sensitive or you're not eating like raw dairy, which most people aren't. This is again the hunter gatherer. Like I work hard to go and get this stuff because that's important to me and we want to eat dairy. If I didn't have access to that, we'd be a dairy free family. But I just love milk and cheese. I grew up on a dairy farm and a beef farm, and so
Girl, you grew up in heaven, it sounds to me.
it, thank you, mom and dad. I love you. I know it was hard. It was for real in many ways, not just the farming aspect.
Farming is hard.
But yeah, so that would be the suggestion is, and honestly, one of the best things that you can do, and this is with smaller children too, is so one, we're meeting everybody where they're at. And that's for you as a parent, that's for, your kids. We're gonna meet them where they're at. But one of the things that I did that was really effective, like when we were transitioning from the sweeter peanut butter, the sugary peanut butter, then I get the plain peanut butter, and my kids were like, "Ew, gross, I don't like that." And so what I do would I'd buy one of each and then cut it. And so I do like 25% of the plain peanuts and salt and 75% the stuff, the Skippy or Jif or whatever they were used to. And then the next time I went 50-50 on it, and they really do, their taste buds really do get reprogrammed very quickly. But remember, you're dealing with addicts. Like their sugar has been shown to light up more areas of our brain than cocaine does. And so we really need to understand that we have to go low and slow on the wean off protocol sometimes, or
We're gonna
it
get the
might get
shape
ugly.
and they're gonna get
Exactly.
gonna start running to the neighbor's house to get their
I know. I know. Our son, I think he's just a little squirrel. I think he knows where all of our neighbors' snack cabinets are, but I'm doing the best I can.
That's funny. My goodness, yeah, that's, I just don't tell me what you eat when you're at your friend's house, and we'll just stick to what I can control here, and then we can discuss how you feel when you come home the next day and how, slow and sluggish and crappy you feel, and look at all those pimples that just appeared because you just gorged on a whole bag of potato chips full of seed oils and, artificial flavorings and, all the carbs and sugar and stuff, and you just feel just so gross and you just feel ugly, and so then we can have that conversation. I mean, I think it's a good learning opportunity.
Yes. Yes. It's always a great satisfactory moment when my kids overindulge on cookies with a grandparent or something. And then they come home and they're like, I don't feel good. And I'm like, why do you suppose that is? And I let them just kind of health coach them around to figuring it out. They're they're great little pearls of wisdom they've gathered for themselves along the way because those are way more effective than me just constantly
Like trying to,
lecturing them about.
this is what you need to eat. Yeah. Now they catch me when I have like a piece of birthday cake from a party or something and I don't feel good. Then I wonder why you don't feel good, Mom. Did you have cake? You know,
Uh-huh.
the tables have turned.
Uh-huh,
Shut
for
up.
sure.
That's not for you to ask, right?
Yeah, yeah, mind your own business, child.
I'm an adult. No, just kidding. I
No, and you
make
know
my own
what?
bed.
I love that you brought that up though, because it is important for them to be able to see us have exceptions. There are like I have my nevers, right? Like aspartame,
Yeah.
absolute toxin,
Abs-
dyes. I don't do dyes to the very, very, and this is, and I say, and high fructose corn syrup is on that list as well. And, and this is where, again, I say never to the best of my ability. Sometimes like if my husband's grandma is going to bake something, I'm not going to ask her what's in it. I'm going to eat it and I'm going to appreciate it and I'm going to let her know how much it made my soul shine because that's what really matters. And I think that when we stress too much about what we're eating, that can be really bad because stress is a terrible thing for our brains and our bodies and our lives, period.
Counterproductive in a sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so being joyful, but also understanding that, again, strive for doing the very best that you can, knowing that you will not be perfect. It is not possible to be perfect. And if you're striving for an unrealistic level of perfection, you're just going to land yourself in feeling really stressed and dissatisfied always, not hitting that bar.
I'm so grateful that you said that because it is, especially on Instagram and, all the social medias, if you're come across as someone who's trying to be healthy and then you do something that's not healthy, oh my gosh, you get so slammed for it. Like, oh, the trolling is bad, but but it's just not reality. And the reality is we're human, we're not perfect, and our environment's definitely not perfect. And even we encounter things we don't intentionally do all the time. We're still learning, we're still growing.
Mhm.
It's yeah, I really
Yeah.
appreciate that you brought that up and just having mercy for ourselves. Like just
Yeah.
mercy. I feel like that's a more appropriate word than grace. Is just mercy.
Yes. Yes, it is, 'cause and we're all running through like, it's oh my gosh, I mean, we have 5 kids, so it's like we're running at a million miles an hour in every which direction. My husband and I sometimes would joke about how it's like, "Man, we're like ships passing in the night." We'd be the best roommates for each other if we were just like roommates in college because we never see each other.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
it's just like go, 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 and that's just a season that we're in and that's a different podcast episode and trying to
Right?
that
It's only a
that
season.
space.
It doesn't last forever.
Yep, and we just try to stay focused on can't do better than your best
That's
and slow down and stop thinking about what's next and what's next and what's next and what I didn't do and what I haven't done and what I need to do and just be present. And that will actually help with your overall health status too, because if we're eating a cheeseburger from a window while we're flying 80 miles an hour in a minivan on the way to cello practice or swimming,
mhm.
or we're eating a handful of kale while we're driving our minivan 80 miles an hour down the interstate on our way to wrestling or hockey. It doesn't really matter if you're not slowing down and getting into that relaxed state, that parasympathetic mode to be able to properly digest your food, then that can cause a lot of issues. That's really where a leaky gut then sets the stage for autoimmune conditions and stuff. And so it's not just what we're eating, but it's how we're eating it that's really important too. And so don't be distracted by screens while you're eating. Don't be in a stressed out state while you're eating. Slow down, take a deep breath, be thankful for the food that you're putting into your body and that's going to really help as well. And it'll help you to not overeat because if you're actually being aware of what you're eating instead of like, I mean, we've all done it. It's
Oh,
like
absolutely.
scarf some food and you're like, I actually don't even remember driving. Like I was gonna say driving
Tastes
because
like
I do that too sometimes. Where I'm like, I don't actually remember the drive. That's how like in my own head I was. I don't remember driving here, or like eating food. It's like I literally don't remember like eating that. I just scarfed it while I was on my computer or whatever.
I just remember being hungry and now I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
I'm blown.
Or I am totally hungry because my brain didn't even register that I ate any of that.
Man, that's so good.
Yeah.
Well, if you
It's a conundrum, but it's really hopeful, Rebecca, because, well, something that I learned years ago is that we get a new body every 7 years. Like, that's kind of the cellular turnover rate. It's like everything in your body should have turned over within 7 years' time.
do you lose
And
any of the fat cells in that process?
well, no. However, it is, it is good to think about how, a fresh, like start today and start just moving towards the future and understanding that this is where it stops. I mean, there are so like the Pottingers. I did a podcast episode on Dr. Francis M. Pottinger and his study that he did on cats and how each generation declined with nutritional
Yeah.
decline. And that is a staggering story of exactly where we are today. He did this like 100 years ago, and now here we are 4 generations later, and our mental health is in the same state as the 4th generation of cats that he was studying. Our physical health is the same state. It's a sorrowful story, but he predicted it. He said this is what's going to happen, and sure enough, our infertility rates, our disease rates, it's exactly what he said was going to happen. And here we are. But all that that means is that we hold the power and the immense, incredible responsibility of flipping the switch. And now we have the Maha movement, and that's not a political issue. That is a
That's
human
a survival
rights movement.
issue.
That yes, that is what we need to get behind and just dive into learning this stuff. It's intimidating. It's, like if you start like try to anything that you want to pick up. It's like you want to be a pilot. You got to start at square one. You want to get into figuring out the political spectrum. It's really intimidating at first. And this whole food and wellness escape is as convoluted and hard to understand as anything else I've ever tried to tackle.
Which is the most ridiculous thing in my opinion, because it should be the most easiest and simplest thing. The simpler, I think we have a tendency to just overcomplicate.
Well, and in this space in particular, there's so much money to be made, and greed
You're
is
right.
fueling,
Exactly.
and greed is really paying for a lot of the pseudoscience that we're seeing. It was greed that made fat demonized, and then
Yeah.
we had the fat phobic era, and our women, in particular, but largely everyone are, the hormonal just, oh my gosh, the chaos that happened after that whole thing. It's like we need fat. We need dietary fats in our lives. We need them in balance and we need them to be clean, but
Yeah.
we need them. And so, recognizing that there are not only is there a whole bunch of propaganda out there telling us misinformation to get us to buy their stuff, but furthermore, we also need to understand that bioindividuality brings a whole new level of complexity too, because there's no one size fits all approach. What's best for me versus what's best for you versus what's best for our husbands versus what's best for our kids. Everybody and every body is different. And
Right.
so we really need to dive in, start learning, but this is how simple it is. We need to be moving our bodies. We need to be reducing stress. We need to be getting off of screens and getting outside, barefoot in the sunshine, preferably. We need to have lots of laughter and human connectivity. We need to feel like we belong and are seen and heard and appreciated and loved. We need to be eating nutrient dense whole foods that are properly prepared so that you can retain as much of the nutrient density as possible. And then we need to be advocating for the promotion of regenerating our soils, giving back to the soil so we're not growing crops with chemicals, but instead with the nutrition that will then be in our foods and then in our bodies. And so we really need to be promoting the companies that are doing the right things. Your dollar is your vote. And so the more that there's a lot of corruption in like the organic space and all of that. I get it. I don't need
everywhere,
that
but
argument, but at the same time, you're voting with your dollar, and the more that we're promoting that industry in particular, the more the bigs have to respond to some extent. And so which is a whole different conversation of where the corruption can go from there, but we're not going there because I believe we're doing really good things. I believe we are on the front end of the swell that is really building momentum, and it's an exciting time to be alive. And we have an incredibly wonderful, challenging, but privileged opportunity to be the major catalyst for big change in the world and the future of our kids.
so taking all that, do you see that if you are a teenager or you've gone through puberty and you're struggling with obesity, is there hope utilizing all just those simple methods to not be obese and to have a somewhat healthy weight and healthy life?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I have seen my husband's actually a triumphant story of having been overweight for the majority of his life. And, and it just, the thing is, you have to remember that however long you spent as that's your normal, that's what your body's going to have established as this is my normal. And so you have to, like I said, you have to take it very seriously, and you can't yo-yo with it because that's not, and you can't crash diet. You just have to make these changes over time and throw your scale away. It's not about the scale. It's not about how much you weigh. It's not about calories in. It's learning to pay attention to your body. Are you actually hungry? If you are you giving your body nutrition or are you giving it a dopamine hit?
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
And then don't eat late at night. Your body was made to survive I mean, think of like the horrendous times throughout US and global history where people were literally starving to death and how long they can sustain on absolutely nothing. And I'm not saying starve yourself, but your brain's gonna be like, I'm starving, I'm dying. And it's not. It's okay. It's okay.
Mechanisms in place to survive. It's an amazing,
Yes.
amazing machine.
And if you feel really hungry, so this is where we talked about the blood sugar roller coaster. One of the times that's the biggest struggle for people, because and we don't want our kids to feel hungry. We don't want this to be about deprivation. We want it to be really good and a really wonderful way of looking at it. But that is one of those tough areas where it's like, especially, the times of day that we eat, everything is habit forming. People that get in their car and that's when they light up a cigarette. Some people get in their car and that's when they have their coffee in the morning. Some people get in their car and that's when they eat a sleeve of Girl Scout Thin Mint cookies.
I was
Like,
hoping you were going to say Thin Mint.
that was one of my clients when I first time, I'm like, "What are you eating? Because 'Cause you're killing it in the gym. What are you eating?" Every single day on the way home from work, she was eating a sleeve of Girl Scout Thin
Ooh,
cookies, and that was when I decided I need to learn more about food. And so with that, just know that you have to break some habits. If you wanna change your life, you gotta change the way you're doing life,
yeah.
right? And so we've gotta break some habits. And so if you're on that blood sugar roller coaster, a lot of times people will eat they'll eat dinner and they should be satisfied until morning when we break fast, right? Because we're supposed to have not eaten all of those hours. We shouldn't be going to bed with a full stomach. And if we're sleeping better, we're going to be doing better off overall anyway. So don't eat too close to bed, eat dinner. And then what happens though is if you're on this blood sugar roller coaster, usually about like 8:30, depending on what time you ate dinner, you'll have that plummet of blood sugar again and your
Miss
brain will
ice cream.
exactly. Nobody there are people are like, "Oh, I'm hungry again." And it's like nobody's craving a steak or a boiled egg.
Absolutely not.
No, it's the ice cream, cereal,
Popcorn.
popcorn,
Yep.
chips, crackers. Yes, the
Quick
quick
energy.
sugar to bring it right back up again. But instead, you know, turn the lights down in your house a little bit. Understand that Mother Nature has already dimmed the lights with the sun setting, right? Telling you it's time to go to bed. And if your body is following along with that, your melatonin levels are coming up, your cortisol levels should be going down, and you should be getting ready to go to bed. Don't force feed yourself more sugar. And with your kids, if they're hungry for a snack before bed, if we can get to a good space of offering them something, maybe they are accustomed to just certain foods, like, figure out what you can do within this space, but if you are giving them a little bit of sugar, make sure that you're pairing that with some fat to offset how much that's spiking their blood sugar, but ideally offering them, something that is protein packed instead of carbohydrate.
Just a couple bites of yogurt usually does the trick,
Some peanut
or
butter, something. So that's what I would say is, just you have to do it slow and sustainable because there's um there are a lot of different ways of approaching this, of course, but if you do it slowly and really plan ahead, and that means that you have to pack food. You
Mhm.
can't rely on finding food from convenience stores and
Oh, girl,
restaurants
we got
and
beef sticks out the wazoo out in every pocket in my car and purse, and I got so tired of my kids. I'm hungry. I'm like, "It's a beef."
yes. Yes, and that's the thing, it's as parents, we also do kind of have to be a stick in the mud sometimes. It's like, if you're actually hungry, you will
You'll eat
eat
this.
you will eat this. Yes.
If you don't want this, you're not really hungry. You're just bored or something else is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but I was raised that way. It was like, "Well, this is what's for dinner.
Get
If
your
you
meal
don't want it, there'll be another meal
in the morning.
in a while." It's like breakfast, lunch, dinner, only we did breakfast, dinner, and supper growing up, but yeah,
Oh,
but that was because, like, the farm families, they actually did, like, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and supper because they were all working so hard, they needed that much fuel,
yeah. It's
and
fun
we
when
we don't.
yeah, they don't. When we did a training, we had the family in Netherlands. I think it was Netherlands. Or no, it was Norway. Oh, it was Norway. They have 5 meals a day, but they have like very long days and their meals are smaller, but my kids were so excited to see 5 meals.
Me too, but I just think of, like, how much time it takes to prepare,
I mean,
serve,
some of them were like very
eat,
simple, like
and then
the
clean
peanut
up
butter
again. I feel like
like
yeah, I feel like when the whole family's home, I just get done cleaning up after one meal and I have to start
another
preparing the
one.
next one.
I know, right?
Uh,
Oh,
but it's all doable, and again,
totally.
we have to forgive ourselves for what we can't change and then move on. Like, you can't ruminate on any of that. That's what's been done is done, and we're now moving forward, and we really just need to understand that we can't do better than our best, but what is your best?
On that note, you can't change what you've done. If you were to go back to your 16-year-old self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Great question. Go through the NTP program. I'm dead serious. I'm serious. That's
Plug right there if I ever
dude,
I'm with you
dude,
on that one
I'm
though.
telling you, like, I have said this before. So my husband's the CEO of the NTA. And but I found my way back to the NTA because I went through the program and it changed my life so much that I was like, we need to grow this organization. We need more people to understand because they don't know what they don't know, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. They wouldn't be feeding their kids this stuff if they knew what it is. And so I just became so passionate about wanting to help other people understand it. And so I ended up finding my way back to the NTA. And then my husband ended up coming over and, as the CEO. And I tell people quite frequently, I'm like, they could never pay somebody to do what I do to promote this organization because I care, like, I am so passionate about that education and wanting as many people as possible to go through it. I don't get any kickbacks, like zero. I'm not even in our marketing department. I'm not at admissions. I get none of it. I literally just care that much. And I wish that I had known sooner so I hadn't made the mistakes that I did with my kids. It's made a major, profound difference in my life, and it was hard at first. Like, my parents were telling people so I went from being the director of marketing for a hospital. My younger sister's a hospital administrator. My older sister's an RN. So we were like Western medicine blinders all
Yeah,
the way.
deep,
And
yeah.
I switched over to this side of
Across
things.
the river.
My parents started telling people that I was living an alternative lifestyle. I'm like, Mom, stop saying that. It makes it sound like I'm living in some weird, like,
Hippie.
hippie nudist
Yeah.
colony somewhere in the woods, like, please stop.
Oh,
And
that was
it's like,
real food.
yeah, exactly. It's like, what again?
What you raised us on.
My my job is to make it so the ones not eating the poison are not the weirdos anymore, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that's actually it.
That's it. That's what you would tell your 16-year-old self.
Yeah, I mean, we could get like, if you had like another hour episode, I could throw some other ideas out there, but off the top of my head, as far as this,
The most
you
life-changing,
know, the
impactful.
most life-changing and impactful thing would be it to go through the NTP program and learn more about just how to eat real food, how to do wellness right.
Mm, how to be free.
Yes,
Of it,
health freedom is
freedom.
kind of freedom that you, like all freedom, you have to fight for it.
Right. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was so wonderful getting to know you better. And I appreciate you speaking hope and giving direction into, like, just because you're obese at puberty doesn't mean it's a lifelong sentence, and you can always come back. And then just forgiving ourselves and just the reality of human life. We can aim for 100%, but if we hit that 90 or 80, it's okay too. And wow, so many amazing nuggets. I'm going to be processing this for quite a while. So
Thank
thank
you
you so
so
much,
much.
Jamie. Is there any way that, like, any of my listeners could find you? I mean, you can plug your I'll link your podcast. Is there, because you do the podcast for the NTA as well. Is there anything else you would like to share?
No, I mean, the truth is, let's all let's all just join forces, like grab somebody near you that's doing it a little bit better than you and grab somebody near you that's not quite where you're at, and let's all run up the hill like that, because if we're all, it makes me emotional. I'm sorry. This stuff makes me so emotional. I'm such a, like, my heart is just so in this mission, but I think that's how we do it, is if everybody is reaching up to grab mentorship and everybody's reaching back to grab menteeship and we're all moving up together, that's really where we're going to see major change. We're going to see community built, and we're going to win. And we're going to win big for everybody.
And the prize is just healthy, vibrant living. I love it.
And babies, our healthy babies.
Lots of babies.
Rebecca, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks for all that you are doing to spread this out to everybody. It's important, and I'm excited to know you and call you my friend.
Likewise. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who might need this too. Your comments and feedback mean the world. They help me grow and bring you more inspiring stories and tools for healthier living. Also, just a quick reminder before we wrap up. I'm not your doctor, and neither are any of my guests. So everything you hear on this podcast is for education and encouragement and inspiration only. Please don't take it as medical advice. Your health is personal, so always check in with your own trusted healthcare practitioner before making any changes. Stay curious, stay inspired, and take good care of yourself.